Over to Job chapter 28. Job 28. And let's see, let me find my Bible. Now, we've been looking at the book of Job here the last 3 months. And as we've been going through, the way I've approached it is Job is about the concept or idea of control. Now, I'm weird in many ways, but one of the ways I'm weird, I do not like being out of control. And so some roller coasters I don't like to get on because I know hardly anybody ever dies on a roller coaster, but I don't want to be the first one, Downhill skiing, I'm not good enough at that to where when I'm going down a hill, I'm out of control. And I just think, it's not something I enjoy. I like just to feel like I'm in control. And I know a lot of us are that way. Because a lot of us, if you offer to hop on a plane, we say no, but you say, hey, you want to ride a car there? We're like, yeah. Even though riding on a car is more than 10 times more dangerous than flying on a plane, why do we feel safer in a car? Because I'm in control, right? All right, so that's what's going on here in the book of Job that we're working with. Here's Job, and he is in control. I mean, he is on cruise control in chapters 1, 2, and 3. Or at least he starts off that way. He has prayed to God every day. He's offering sacrifices every day for his children. He is a very wise man, so he is filthy rich. He has lots of kids. Everything is going well for him. He is respected in the community. He is in control. And then suddenly, he doesn't see what's happening in heaven. So suddenly, he's not in control. He loses his possessions. He loses his reputation. He loses his family. He loses his health. Everything is gone. And he does not know why. And so he begins to struggle with this concept of being in control. Why is this happening in my life? And what do I need to do differently to make this operate in my life the way it should? Now, you and I may say, well, that's silly. Job should have known that it doesn't always work this way. But we have this concept ingrained within us, and you can find it in Scripture. Good things happen to good people. Bad things happen to bad people. And the Bible says that, right? You honor God, He will bless you. This is Deuteronomy 28. You curse God or you're disobedient, what happens? The whole cycle of the book of Judges, 7 times. You see their righteousness and their unrighteousness. Things go back and forth. Things like that. All right. That is generally the case. But if we think it's a 100% case, and I said it funny in the notes because I couldn't think of a better way to say it, we've turned God into an ice cream machine, okay? Can't go to McDonald's or it wouldn't work. But we've turned God into an ice cream machine because God blesses those who do righteous. God curses those who do unrighteously. And if it's always that way 100% of the time, God is just something where I'm sitting over here and I say, hey, I need some blessings. I push the button, I'm faithful to God, and out pop those blessings. If I'm going through life and something's happened to me, that means I've not pushed the button often enough. And that sounds like a silly illustration of what we think is going on in life. But then something happens in my life, and I say, well, why, God, I didn't deserve this. Why would you do this to me? And have you ever asked that question or heard somebody ask that question? Because I sure have. God, why? What did I ever do to deserve this? And when you ask that question, what you're doing is, in a sense, you are displaying sovereignty or control over God. Because God, in your mind, has no right to do anything bad to you if you've done everything the way you should. Now, other times we look and we see people who are evil and they're just doing great. And we say, well, God, why would you allow this to happen? Because, once again, we're exerting control over God, determining who He blesses and who He doesn't bless. And a lot of times that's us. God, you should bless me. I mean, I made it all the way through that sermon, right? And we go through and say, well, of all the things I've done, why would you ever do that? So that is the control element, and Job's right now out of control. Everything is chaos in his life, and he does not know what has happened, and he can't turn a screw or do something to a bolt. I mean, no matter what he does, the plane is not straightening up. He's in trouble. And so on top of that, now come his three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Now they come, and they are trying to prove to Job that what he thought before is true, because if you mess that up, their world is chaos. One guy comes and says, well, my religious forefathers, my religion says God blesses those who are good, curses those who are bad. The other person says, well, the ancestors, tradition has always said this. Third person says, common sense says this. And so now here in 27, Job is done talking to the friends, and he's going to transition. 27, 29, and 30 are going to be his oath of innocence. Lord willing, we'll cover that next week. But this is one of my favorite chapters in Job, so I decided I would do it today. Chapter 28, and it's the divine discourse on wisdom and what wisdom truly is and where you get wisdom. Now, Job is one of the wisdom books. For the longest time, I could not figure that out, but it's because of chapter 28. The books of wisdom are Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and of course, Job comes first on that list. So let's look at Job 28. And hopefully, if I do my job right, you're going to love this chapter as well. All right. What would a person do for gold? Well, you get a job, right? But you watch those people, yes, sir.
Those 6 men in Laos, way down in the cave and
Yep.
the mud,
Uh-huh.
they were looking for gold.
Yeah, those guys who died in that cave.
Well,
Did they die or were they rescued?
died,
Okay.
but most of
Yeah, they were looking for gold. Yeah, that's right. I think in my mind, looking at this country's history, the 49ers, not the cursed football team, all right, who beats the Cowboys every once in a while. Not those 49ers, the real 49ers, 1849ers. All right, you have people who are living life in the East, and, wasn't a great life, wasn't a terrible life, but they loaded up on a wagon, and they started across and fought against Indians, fought against deserts, fought against the mountains of the Rockies. They made it all the way through to California, or they went the passage under Argentina. They made it all through this difficult passage. They got out there, and you sit there in a stream, and you begin getting rocks, and you begin shaking it hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. And what did they get? Usually nothing, but success would be just a few flakes of gold, because that could mean a fortune. Now, I sit back and I look at that and I think, why would you work so much for that? As Dan just said to people in Laos, that was what, a year or 5 years ago? Was it this week? Okay, so it's a new people in Laos who did it. All right, climbing down a cave looking for gold. You probably have seen some of the movies or documentaries on blood diamonds and what people go through to pull some of those diamonds out of the ground over in Africa to bring to the West or wherever else to sell. That's the process of what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and read. We'll start in verse 1. Job says, surely there's a mine for silver and a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, copper is smelted from ore. So we're looking at iron, copper, gold, and silver. Okay? Verse 3, man puts an end to darkness and searches every recess for ore in the darkness and the shadow of death. He breaks open a shaft away from people in places forgotten by feet. They hang far away from men and they swing to and fro. Now he's being poetic, but he's saying they are digging mines and going places where no one has ever gone before. They are discovering places that no bird has ever seen. They are going through, verse 3, shadow of death. They are going away, far away from where any person has ever been. Verse 4, nobody has ever walked. They are swinging from these long ropes as they're going down these caves. In other words, what he's saying is they are going through immense trouble and going and doing things which you and I would not think it was possible for people to do. And they're going through all of this because of gold, silver, copper, and other things such as that. They're going through and doing everything they can. Verse 5, this is talking about strip mining. The earth that comes from it comes the bread, but underneath it's turned up as by fire. Its stones are the source of sapphires and contains gold dust. All right, you look at the surface, it's beautiful, right? You look at the fields out here and you see the hay which is growing as you're driving home. You're going to see corn. Corn is much different than it was when I grew up. We used to say knee high by the 4th of July. You ever heard that? Now it's almost ready to be processed by that time. It grows much faster. But you look at all the beauty that this earth has, and what's mankind doing? Turning it over. Turning it over, digging it. Think of a strip mine where a large area is just absolutely stripped clear because they're doing everything they can to find it. That path no bird knows, nor has falcon eye seen it. Its proud lions have not trotted there, nor has fierce lion passed over it. In other words, he's going someplace where these animals never have been. He's turning everything over. Now, look at verse 9. He gets that flint in his hand, and with that flint, he overturns what in verse 9? A mountain. All right? This great big mountain here, he just wipes out because he is digging in to see what's inside of it. He cuts out channels in the rock, and his eyes see every precious thing. Verse 11, he dams up the streams from trickling, and what he's hidden is brings back to life. All right, what's mankind doing? We are turning over mountains. We're taking these huge rivers and diverting them with dams. We're moving this and that because we're looking for something worth. Gold, silver, copper. We're trying to find exactly what it is. Now, of course, copper has to be smelted. It's not found in a natural state. But they're turning over earth and everything to try to find any of this wealth, to try to get whatever they can. Okay? So what is something that people work severely hard for? Now, we'll talk about wisdom in a second. But in this world, what are some things people work severely hard for? Okay, happiness. I'm thinking about, bringing up gold and bringing up silver. If you go back to the old home places, and you'll see it somewhere in LBL, you'll see some of those smelting iron places. Have you seen those spots? Where they're working on trying to develop that pig iron back in the 1800s. And some of that was going on during the Civil War, the pig iron, and trying to create the stuff needed for gunpowder as well. It's amazing what chemically people will have invented to do and what mechanically people have designed to put together. Now, I lived down in Mississippi. I knew a fellow who worked in a strip mine. He was a mechanic on some of the trucks. And he was real proud of himself and the work that he did. He would always have these pictures, and it would amaze me. He would be standing beside this dump truck, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but his whole body was only about a third of the height of the wheel on that dump truck. Those things were absolutely huge. And he would be showing me about how they would fill those things up and dump over here and move here or there or wherever else. And it's amazing what people will do to find diamonds, to find emeralds, to find gold, to find silver. It's amazing. Yes, sir, Dan?
Also, they'll dig way down for oil. I grew up in Oklahoma mostly.
Yeah.
And, so we had friends that when they found oil on their property, they would get proceeds from that if they would let them put a pump there. So here's those pumps. All day long, they'll drive you crazy if you live near them.
Right.
Boop, 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 all night long.
Yeah.
Anyway, gold. Yeah, they do a lot of work to get,
That's right. Yeah, looking at what people will do to get oil and what people will do to maintain control over oil in our world economy, things that people will go through in order to do it. Job is taking a step back and he's saying, I want you to realize, first of all, what people go through to get rich and how much people will dig and how much people will work in order to get wealth. Now the transition, look here in verse 12. You can find gold, you can find silver, you can find copper to be smelted. Where can wisdom be found and where is a place of understanding? Well, 13 and 14, you look everywhere, you're not going to find it. Man doesn't even recognize the value of it. The sea says it's not with it. It can't be bought with money, gold, nor silver. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir or precious onyx or sapphire. Nor gold or crystal can ever equal it, nor can it be exchanged for fine gold. No mention can be made of coral or quartz, for the price of wisdom, verse 18, is above rubies. The topaz of Ethiopia cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. In other words, you can be the richest man on this earth, the Elon Musk, the Rockefeller, depending on what day you want to look in stock values or whatever, who's the richest person. You can be the richest person in the world and not have wisdom, not have understanding. And it doesn't matter what college you went to. It doesn't matter what grades you made on a certain standardized test. It doesn't matter what you've done. You will never get to that point to where you can buy it. And so you might be able to dig up gold, and you might be able to go to the bottom of the river and find some diamonds. You, by your own self, are never going to catch wisdom. It's just not going to happen. So, verse 20, so where does it come from? If you can't dig it, you can't earn it, you can't just find it, where does it come from? It's hidden from the eyes of the living, it's concealed from the birds of the air. Those who have died whisper it because they almost got there. They have a report of it. But look at verse 23. God understands its way. He knows its place. Now we're going to have a preview of the end of the book. Look at the power of God. He looks to the ends of the earth. He sees everything under heaven. He establishes the weight of wind, and he decides where the oceans go by the measure. He makes the law for the rain and the path for the thunderbolt. God, who can do all these things that you and I cannot do, what's he do? He sees wisdom. He declares it. He prepares it. Indeed, he searches it out. Now, verse 27 has an important concept for us, okay? Because in the Bible, if you name somebody, you have control over him. That's why when Jacob was wrestling with God, God said, hey, your name's Israel. And he said, well, what's your name? And he said, I'm not going to tell you. You don't have control over God. If you name someone, it shows that you have control over that person. Simon, you are now Peter, okay? That's Jesus taking control. So God names it. God controls it. God created it. God designed it. So where are you going to go find wisdom? Who is the person you find to find out what wisdom is? It's not Job. It's not Eliphaz, Bildad, or Zophar. Where is the true source of wisdom? It's God. Look at verse 28. And to man he said, now tell me if you ever heard this before. Behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to depart from evil is understanding. Heard that before? Ecclesiastes 12, 13, and 14. Behold, this is the whole duty of man, to fear God, to keep his commandments. Proverbs 1, 7, Proverbs 17, 23. Wisdom. Wisdom comes from God. All right. Short poem, but it matters so much to us. Because the world is telling us, you look everywhere in the world and you're going to find what's worthwhile. If you get enough education, man, your life's going to be good, right? If you marry the right person and have the right friends, your life will be a success. You take care of your body and you are a healthy person, there it all is. And we tell people all these ways to find true happiness, all these ways to find fulfillment, all these ways to make yourself a success. And no matter how much you dig, no matter how much you turn over, no matter how much you do, where are you going to find true fulfillment? God. God is the source of wisdom. God is the source of the greatest riches that you will ever have on this earth. And so it's a very neat poem. What runs with the problem with this poem is in Hebrew, we don't understand a lot of the words even here. He's talking about the technology, the mining back then. And a lot of the words don't really make super sense to us. We've tried to do our best with it. But we can still understand what Job's saying. Job is saying, hey, mankind does all these complicated things, but no matter how hard he works, he's never going to find wisdom unless it's in God. Does that make sense?